Howdy, folks. What's going on? This is the Outlaw Hatfield back at you one more time. Of course, like always, I've got Rich with me. How you doing, Rich?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Yeah, it's going. It's going. It's been another one of those weeks in wrestling history. I'm sure you heard the news about Pat Patterson.
Mm-hmm.
Man, how many have we lost this year?
I don't know, but
It's
at least Pat Patterson was an old guy. He
yeah.
was
Well,
he, he was 79 years old, so he lived a full life.
yeah, but you know,
Yeah, I mean,
there's
not
just
that's not the downplay. I mean, but he didn't die early. He wasn't as young as what say Animal was or some of the other people that we've lost this year.
yeah. It's just been a bad year, man. And now we lose numbers of pro wrestlers every year, and every year it's heartbreaking. But man, this year it's just I guess what it is with everything else that's going on, that hits us, and we're like, oh well, damn. Um, but anyway, um, we've got two people watching. I don't see anybody chatting out there right now, so whoever's out there, hello, how are you? Hope life is good for you. Um, Rich, have you been keeping up with what's going on in the wrestling world? I haven't been seeing anything lately. I've been just busy at work.
Yeah, I mean, I've just watched AEW's show from last week. It was basically a pay per view for free. Kenny Omega beat John Moxley for the AEW title in a controversial fashion with Don Callis, who is the executive vice president of Impact Wrestling. So they're looks like going to be doing a crossover with Impact going
Hmm.
forward. Don't know what yet. If you want to find out, you got to tune in Tuesday. They said on Impact to find out what's going on there. That was what Don Callis said when he was being interviewed as him and Kenny Omega were running away with the AEW title. And I've been watching New Japan with their World Tag League tournament and the Best of Super Junior tournament going on right now simultaneously.
Yeah.
Usually,
Lord have mercy.
yeah,
Sorry to cut you off, but we have the mayor, Roy T, out there. How you doing, Mayor?
yeah. But usually the
Or
Best of
T.
Super,
Roy, excuse me.
yeah, usually the Best of Super Juniors in May, April or May, but because of COVID, it all got pushed back and everything. And then because of the Olympics, they had to push back the G1, so where they would have probably had the Best of Super Junior because the Olympics and the G1 being pushed back in the first place, and then COVID on top of that, everything got. They're doing both tournaments at the same time, but with less teams in the tournament, in the one tournament, and less of the the junior heavyweights in the junior heavyweight tournament, which
Hmm.
actually makes it more competitive because you get better wrestlers. You know, you don't got the throwaway garbage teams that are just put together for the tournament and whatnot.
Speaking of teams, do you remember the Jim Crockett Memorial Tag Team Championships?
Yeah, NWA just did that. The
Did
Memorial,
they?
yeah, they just
Yeah.
did a Jim Crockett Memorial tournament last year before all the COVIDs happened when they were doing their show on YouTube and whatnot. And they
I,
just
I,
started a new show. I haven't watched it, but the NWA just started a new show on YouTube too. I can't remember the name of it right now.
so I was shocked. I seen a picture of Sting wearing a AEW shirt.
That's because he showed up at the end of, no, not at the end, but during one of the AEW segments.
Wow, that's interesting. What's going on there? Any backstory?
I'm trying to remember what the hell happened. This show was packed, man. This was a stack show. This was a pay per view show. But I think there was the Nightmare Family was getting beat down by the Dark Order or something. I'm trying to remember, or was it no? It wasn't the Dark Order. It was Taz's crew were attacking Cody Rhodes and who is now using the Rhodes last name again.
Very good.
And what's the skinny dude? With the faints his face halfway. Darby Allin. Him and Darby Allin were taking on the two of Taz's guys. Damn, I'm drawing blanks on names tonight. Will Hobbs and Ricky Starks. That's who it was. They were taking on Will Hobbs and Ricky Starks. They won the match. Brian Cage and Taz get in the ring and start beating on them. Arn Anderson jumps in the ring to try and help them. Arn starts getting the crap kicked out of him. I mean, he was taking bumps, which is probably the first time in a while that Arn has taken a bump. All of a sudden, the lights go out. You got a raven shows up on the screen, or a crow shows up on the screen. I was like, oh shit, Sting's here. Before we even got any farther than that. I mean, that was my reaction. Next, they start showing this like snow falling in a forest and this dark music playing. The lights come back up. There's Sting standing on the top of the stage.
Wow. Do you think he's actually going to do any wrestling?
They said he's not going to be doing any wrestling, but he is going to be active in there. He can't really do any wrestling because of the spinal stenosis he suffered in that match with
Rollins.
Yeah, Seth Rollins, where he got buckle bombed, and he still says to this day that it was his fault. It was not Rollins' fault. He didn't land right, and that's why it happened. Totally on him. But and he's in his 60s now, so I mean, they say he's not actually going to be wrestling, but he will every so often take a mild bump and whatnot.
Well, you know, this man has been going for what? I remember him wrestling in like the USWA.
Yeah.
And back in what, 84, 85?
God, that would have been before that, because after that he went to UWF.
Yep, that's true.
And he came over to WCW / the Crockett in the merger.
Yep. So we're talking about a guy that has literally been in wrestling since the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's wow. And he has always kept up with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm wondering if they're going to throw him in a managerial role, because they have 3 other legends that are basically in managerial roles right now. You got Jake Roberts and Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, all managers right now.
Well, now, here's a thought. How old is Sting's son now?
I don't know.
Now, this may be a shot in the dark, but what if Sting is setting up his son for professional wrestling? That would be a hell of a way to bring him in.
Oh,
Sting shows up. Sting shows up at a event for AEW. Okay, his kid's probably not got the skill set for, anything major right now at the moment. But think about who's wrestling and doing things in AEW right now. Talk about getting some damn good training.
Mm-hmm. Well, imagine this, man. You got Billy Gunn and his son are there. Billy Gunn's basically the managing his son right now.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. You got Brian Pillman's son. Bring in Sting's son, you can do another version of Legacy.
Yeah. Well, and think about this, though. Sting comes in. he's getting pounded on, beat on. He's down and down and down. And all of a sudden, the sun shows up wearing face paint, no less. Basically Sting 2.0. I think that would sell a lot of tickets because remember what it was like when Dustin first showed up in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were all over Dustin because Dusty Rhodes' son. Of course, he made the trip to New York and what they did to him, but I was never a fan of the Gold Dust thing ever.
Well, that was his idea.
Oh, I know.
And you know what the extreme that he wanted to go to, but McMahon wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I know. But I was kind of disappointed with Dustin, with the whole Gold Dust thing. Not that it wasn't a good character. The character was great. I think my problem has always been I looked up to Dusty as a wrestler so highly, and I always figured, that's just giving the dream just a slap in the face. But as time goes on, and
there's a but there. Dusty helped him develop the character.
Yeah, I know. But I didn't find that out till years later. Mystic Guns, how are you? Kingpin's out there. But I would like to see Sting's son come in and actually be a sort of a Sting 2.0. And what would really be great would be if he was Sting 2.0 and just as good as his dad. Because that's something you very rarely see is the prodigy come in and be as good as the father was. It has happened. I mean, look at Randy Orton, for crying out loud.
Oh, Randy Orton's better than his dad ever was.
Yeah, exactly.
Or his grandfather.
Randy Orton is just an amazing wrestler. He's got the looks, he's got the attitude, he's got everything going for him. He's pretty good on the mic.
You could make the case that Cody is just as good, if not maybe a little better than his dad.
Yeah, I think you're right. I love Cody. I think I've watched several of his matches. There's just something about Cody that screams, hey, put a world title on me. Let me run it.
They have.
Yep, I know.
He can't hold. He can't, under a match stipulation, he cannot hold the AEW world title. He challenged Jericho when Jericho held it, and one of the stipulations of the match was that if he lost, he could never challenge for it again.
Wow. See, I think what they'll probably end up doing, and this is how they're going to get around that. What they will do is this. Something will happen. Whoever the world champion is will have the title stripped from them, right? They'll hold a tournament. Cody will enter the tournament, win the tournament, and thereby become world champion once again.
I think you're looking at it from the wrong angle.
Oh?
They have a working relationship with the NWA. There's nothing that says he can't hold the NWA world title.
This is true. Could you imagine if those two companies were to merge completely?
Well, people are theorizing that might be what's happening because you got them working with the NWA and now you got them working with Impact. What if there's a three-way merger?
So we're talking AEW, Impact, NWA. Here is where I get a little wishy-washy.
Let's not forget they also have a working relationship with AAA. Not only is Kenny Omega right now the AEW champion, he's also AAA in Mexico's world champion.
Mystic Guns, don't know what you're talking about. So if these 3 or 4 companies merge together, what name do they stick with? It would make sense to me if they're all going to be under one brand, you stay with what was been there the longest, the NWA.
Well, that's what some of the speculation is, that you're going to have these 3 companies that are going to come under the NWA's umbrella. Whoever the NWA champion is going to be the major champion, kind of like how Ric Flair was. And then you'll have the AEW champion, the AAA champion, and the Impact champion underneath that title.
Sort of like the old territory days.
Yeah, basically. Only you're going to have a bunch of national things and one international. You have 2 national promotions, 1 international promotion under the NWA's umbrella is what some people are speculating could be what's going to come of this, possibly. Again, it's just people thinking and putting forward theories, but that's one of the theories that might happen, especially with the COVID situation and everything, and it'll make it easier for a talent swap. And if you need somebody for a show, you can pull from this show or that show or what have you. This promotion.
Do you know what a strain that would put on WWE? Okay, right now the WWE ratings aren't the greatest, and as far as I know, AEW has had amazing.
They haven't hit the level of Raw or SmackDown yet, but they regularly are beating NXT on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. With the talent that they've got. Now, let's say we're adding the talent from the NWA and Impact into the fold. That's a lot of hard hitters, man.
Yeah. And let's not forget that 3 of the executive vice presidents for AEW are the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. They have friends in Ring of Honor. One of their friends is Ring of Honor's head booker. There's some speculation that we could see interaction with Ring of Honor by the time this is said and done. And possibly New Japan.
Now, that gets me excited. I thought that WWE had some sort of relationship with New Japan.
What does?
In the WWF or WWE.
No, they do not.
What happened with that? I know they did.
No, they never did. They had Japanese wrestlers, but they were not. WWE is trying to compete with New Japan. They're trying to start a branch of NXT in Japan.
Oh, really?
Yes, they have been for years, and every time they think they got something, it falls through.
I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking that, man, what if this thing happens the way you're thinking that it might? This is really something to get excited about when it comes to professional wrestling. I mean, finally, another company that can literally go toe to toe with Vince McMahon's machine up in New York.
And we have reason to believe that they could do something with New Japan because Jon Moxley, who just lost the AEW World title, is also New Japan's United States champion. And when Jericho hit they did hit the 30-year celebration for Jericho. They had New Japan wrestlers congratulating him on the big screen there in the arena.
Kingpin was wanting to know what about a crossover promotion WWE NWA. There is a lot of bad blood between McMahon and the old NWA. That's you have to remember that back in the day before the big two, which would have been NWA and WWE, it was all territories. Well, Vince McMahon Sr. was part of those territories. And he just kept buying up more and more and more of the smaller areas. And then when he retired and Vince Jr. come in, Vince had other ideas. He wanted more. He wanted more power. He wanted more control over the business, and he pretty much took it. The NWA, on the other hand, while they were still doing the whole territory thing, they'd have a territory here, a territory there. You'd had Mid-South and, the Memphis area, and then out in Texas, you had a different area. Louisiana had a different area. The Carolinas. They eventually, just to survive, had to combine into one sanctioned NWA.
Yeah.
Just to compete with Vince.
Well, no, the NWA was around before that. The NWA since the early 1900s.
Oh, yeah.
The WWF used to be one of those territories under the NWA's umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. There was, and at the time, it was WWF, right?
Yeah. And before that, it was Capital Wrestling.
Yep. So, there's a lot of bad blood between the NWA and Vince McMahon's WWE.
Yeah, and while you'll have promotions like AEW and Impact and New Japan and Ring of Honor and AAA and CMLL, which is another Mexican federation, which works with New Japan, willing to have working relationships with one another, Vincent Kennedy McMahon's idea of a working relationship is buy everybody else and then say you're having a working relationship with the companies that you just bought.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it. That's one of the biggest reasons that from 2001 until very recently, actually, I stopped watching wrestling completely. I just gave up on it. I would catch an Impact show now and then. Once in a blue moon, a match would come on WWE that I figured I might be interested in watching, and I'd watch that match. But as far as sitting down at a specific time, once a week, twice a week, to watch a complete show, no. I hadn't done that. The last complete wrestling show that I watched was the final episode of Nitro. And after that episode, I just stopped. It was just no. I had seen the way Vince McMahon had been treating all these guys that had come from the WCW to the WWE or WWF time from WCW before the buyout. And he was treating them like crap. I mean, I just never agreed with that. And I think that's part of the reason why guys like Sting took so many years to go up there, because they were afraid that
it wasn't the guys before the merger. It was the guys from the merger that were getting treated like crap. If you look at the Big Show, Jericho, Stone Cold, Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, who all went over and jumped over there before WCW completely collapsed. Those guys were treated well. It was the guys that came after that took a couple years before they started being treated well. And a perfect example, Booker T.
Oh, I remember, and this is one of the few shows that I actually caught. My buddy Ronnie was a huge wrestling fan, and because he was, so was his wife and their kids. And I had went out to his house, and it was Booker T or maybe The Rock. I know they were both involved in it. And Booker T comes out, and The Rock's like, well, doing that whole "Who do you think you are?" or whatever it was he was saying at the time. And the whole it don't matter who you are. And I was like, come on, dude. In my opinion, Booker T was every bit as good as a performer as The Rock, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Opinions vary, but in my opinion, I think Booker T should be on anybody's top 10 list easily for just athleticism. Did he have a body like The Rock? No.
Yeah, he did. Booker T was pretty built.
Yeah, he was built, but he wasn't as tall. I don't think he was.
Yeah, he was. Booker T's the same height as The Rock. When they were
maybe it's just
match, they were eye to eye with one another. Booker T was not looking up at him; they were looking straight ahead at each other, right in the eye.
Yeah. I personally, I just think Booker T's the better athlete. Maybe he didn't have the charisma, maybe he didn't have the skills on the mic, but I think that Booker T was just as good in the ring. And probably better than most of the guys that were wrestling in the WWE at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, opinions vary. That's mine.
Yeah.
But anyway, let me ask you a question. Something that I've been tossing around here lately. Let's say the year is 1985, and you're a professional wrestling manager, and you're going to put together the Four Horsemen. You're James J. Dillon. You're going to be the manager. What four guys do you want to pick to be your Four Horsemen?
At that point in time, probably the four that were in it.
No, you wouldn't have changed anything?
I can't think of anybody that I would have changed at that point in time, because some of the guys that came later weren't there. For example, Barry Windham was over in WWF at that point.
Was he?
Yeah, that would have been about the same time as you had the U.S. Express. Luger and Sting and those guys were still wrestling.
Sting would have never worked, and I'm going to tell you why.
Well, no, I'm just using him as an example. I mean, they weren't there. They weren't on the scene yet. They hadn't made it to that level yet. Benoit hadn't made it to that level yet. He was still riding around as the Pegasus Kid in training up in Calgary.
Yeah.
So at that time, the guys that you had in the NWA, that's probably about the best nucleus of guys that you were going to get.
Yeah. Okay, let's fast forward 10 years. The Horseman was never a thing. Now you're going to create the Four Horsemen. Who do you pick? Even 5 years. Because by 1992,
so we're
the
still
business had changed.
Horsemen as a heel faction because
babyface
babyface stints. So
Yep.
we're going to go heel faction. Well, you got to have Flair. You got to have Arn.
Okay.
There's no doubt those two. They were in just about every configuration of the Four Horsemen.
They were in every configuration.
Yeah, they are the glue that held it together, right?
Yep.
Let's see, Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit, regardless of what he did, is and was one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. The guy could just go and you know, he was one of the few cruiserweights back then that could hang with the bigger guys.
And well, Chris Benoit was 220 pounds. He wasn't like he was a real small guy.
Yeah, well, back then that was a cruiserweight. That's still a junior heavyweight in New Japan.
Yeah.
It's WWE that decided that a cruiserweight's got to be 205. If you look in professional, cruiserweight is basically a light heavyweight. If you look at professional boxing, a light heavyweight is anybody under 225 pounds. Muhammad Ali boxed heavyweights as a light heavyweight. So, just to put that in perspective. So, yeah, and I'm going to put Chris Jericho in there.
Jericho, really?
Him and Benoit as a tag team?
Okay. I can see that. I can see that. Now, would you like me to throw one mine at you?
Sure.
Okay, now this is going to probably dig a little deep, but Flair and Arn, I happen to agree with you there. If you're going to have a Four Horsemen, you got to have Flair and Arn. Here's where I'm going to differ from you. The third member would be Rick Rude, because I think that Rude is just he was an amazing heel. He could get heat.
I think that's the problem.
Really?
Rude and Flair would mix like oil and water, I think.
Maybe not. As long as you kept, I would see Rude as maybe the same role that Lex Luger played, or the same role that Barry played.
I just can't see him in that role. He's more on the Ric Flair level. I don't think it would work with Rick Rude in there.
Yeah, well, if you don't like that, then my fourth pick is really going to drive me crazy.
That's why I went with two younger guys when I put Benoit and Jericho in there. Both of those guys would be top tier guys later in their careers, but at that point they were young enough where they were just starting out. They wouldn't have caused that friction that there could have been.
Yeah. Well, the next guy I would have picked for my Four Horsemen would have been Vader. So now you have Flair, Arn, Rick Rude, and Van Vader. That would have been a Four Horsemen to be contended with.
It would have certainly been interesting.
Yeah, it would. It definitely been interesting. Could you imagine the heat that that team could have drawn? And it wouldn't have been hard. I mean, you had let's put Vader and Rude as tag team champions. At the time, tag team was big in the NWA, WCW. You'd have had the Rock and Roll Express going after them. You'd have had Road Warriors going after them. How Ricky and Robert would have stood a chance against Van Vader, well, who knows? But I think that Ricky, Robert, Rude, that would have been, those would have been some good matches, man. Or you could, Van Vader, Big Van Vader would be the United States champion. Arn and Rick Rude would be the tag team champions. Now, you can't tell me that you couldn't see Arn and Rick Rude working together as tag team champions. I think that would have been a hell of a tag team. Almost as good, probably, as Arn and Tully.
Yeah, but there's one thing you're forgetting. At that point, Rude would have been in the WWF.
Yeah, this is true.
He would
I
have
didn't
been
say
stable.
I didn't say that they all had to be in the WCW or NWA.
Yeah, I know, but that's just another complication.
Yeah. Well, that's an easy problem to solve. Okay, you don't go. You go Arn Anderson, Ric Flair. Somebody else that was in the NWA at the time would have been Steve Austin. Think about Ric Flair taking a young Steve Austin under his wing. And, then throw who else was floating around at the time? How about a Ron Simmons?
Yeah, he'd have
Or
been at that time, so that could work.
Yeah. Ron Simmons, great athlete, had a great look to him, was good on a mic.
How about this one? Larry Zbyszko and Bobby Eaton.
My problem with Bobby is this. Bobby was great in the ring. He really was. He had all the talent in the world. I don't think he had a horseman's look to him. Bobby Eaton never did.
I disagree with you. Arn wanted Bobby Eaton, the Four Horsemen. He couldn't make it happen because he was in the Midnight Express.
Exactly. I look at Bobby and I don't see that intimidation factor that all the horsemen had. There was always an intimidation factor with every member of even Ric Flair. And with Ric Flair, it came off as arrogance, but there was that intimidation factor there with each and every, I ain't gonna say every horseman, because Paul Roma was a horseman, and I don't think he was intimidating.
Eaton could be arrogant. You forget when he was with Regal.
Yeah, this is true. But, how about Stan Lane for that matter?
Just throw the whole Midnight Express in, both of them.
Yeah. Or Dennis Condrey. Either one of those guys. Stan, I could see, a four horsemen managed by Jim Cornette, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, and the Midnight Express. Who was the biggest flop? The wrestler they tried to promote and just never got popular. I would have to say, in my opinion, the biggest flop wrestler probably didn't flop because of what he did in the ring. I think he flopped long before he made it to the ring.
Shockmaster?
Yes. Yeah.
Under that gimmick, yes, because he was Typhoon before that in the WWF.
Yeah.
But, I got one that'll top that.
Okay.
We're going to stick with WCW for this one. The Kiss Demon.
Yeah, I remember that. You know what? The guy had a good look. He really looked good. Face paint was great.
Oh yeah, he had the Gene Simmons face paint.
I think that where he failed was they put him into the ring, into the mix way too soon against guys that were way better than he was.
Mm-hmm. And the gimmick.
Yeah.
The gimmick was extremely commercial, and nobody was buying it.
Do you remember the Renegade?
Yeah,
That's another one that didn't do
the
real well.
copy of the Ultimate Warrior.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of guys show up that they were trying to push, and they just no.
Yeah,
Fans would not have it.
yeah.
Those are three of the good ones.
Yeah, Kingpin had another good question too. Before that, he wanted to know: do we think if there are too many titles or not enough? That depends on the federation. To be perfectly honest with you, WWE has too many. There's just too many titles in the WWE right now. You got one title there that's just a joke title, for crying out loud. You get 24/7 title if you've seen that one. It's a hardcore title without the hardcore aspect.
Let's go back to my favorite time period in wrestling, the mid to late 80s, where in the NWA you had the World Television Championship. The thing about the World Television Championship was it was to be decided every time there was a TV program. If there was a show going on, that title was defended. You had the United States Championship.
Yo.
You had the world title. Okay. Then you had the
world title.
A single world title.
Yep.
Then you had different territories.
Well, no. The U.S. title and the World Television title were territorial titles.
Yeah,
they were part of the Crockett territory.
Yeah, but there were other territorial titles.
Yeah, there were other territorial championships, but if you look at different territories, they had United States titles too.
Yeah.
I mean,
you also had the United States Tag Team Champions
mm-hmm.
that went missing for years at a time. You had the World Tag Team Championship.
Yeah, there were 3 championships.
And then the 6-man tag.
Yeah, you had 3 championships that were over top of the whole NWA. 3.
Yeah.
Well, 4 if you count the women's. But you had the world title, you had the tag titles, the world tag titles, then you had the world, what was it, light heavyweight champion?
Yep.
Those 3 were defended in all the territories. Then you had territorial championships. The one world title that wasn't an NWA title but was a territorial title was the 6-man title. That was part of the Crockett Promotions family of championships. What made that doable was, again, most of your championships were territory. Whereas if you look at something like WWE now, every one of their titles are defended on the same pay-per-view. Back in the territory days, you may have a big show for, say, your Minnesota territory, your New York territory, your Southern territory, whether it was Mid-South, Florida, Georgia, or the Carolinas, and that would be all that was on that show was that territory. So you only had maybe 4 championships being defended at the time on that show. WWE puts together a pay-per-view every year that's nothing but championships being defended. And they'll have 8 or 9 matches on the card.
And to me, that's just way too much.
Mm-hmm.
When we go from the NWA moving into the WCW era, we would have, again, the television title was there.
Mm-hmm.
The United States title was always there.
Yeah, and you had the
then you had the world title there for a little while. For about a year and a half, maybe 2, we had an international title for the WCW. Remember that?
Well, yeah, that was the big gold belt.
Yeah, that was the international title. They did away with that one completely. We still had the tag team championships. but they did away with the 6-man,
Mm-hmm.
and they did away with the United States Tag Team Championship.
No, they still had it. There was for a while WCW. They still had
What?
the U.S. tag.
Yeah, but by the time 93, 94 rolled around, it wasn't even a thing anymore.
No, they were there. The U.S. tag team titles were still there. That wasn't until they didn't go away until around the time the NWO came around.
No, I think you're wrong about that. I'll have to look, but I don't think that's correct.
Yeah, they were around for a while. They were still around.
I think they were around for a couple of years, but I don't think they were there for that long. Now, I could be wrong. It's happened, but I would have to check into the history. Unfortunately, at the moment, I am not able to do that very thing.
No, but I am. I'm checking into it right now.
Oh, very good. T-Roy, but y'all forget that the first pay-per-views. Yeah, this was way before pay-per-views.
Maybe you're right. It says they retired in '92.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They run longer than that.
No.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't too long after the merge, after the WCW takeover.
For a year. They were the WCW United States tag titles from January 91 to July 31st of 92. I guess it was longer than that. Just seems like it.
No. Yeah, it might have seemed like it, but no. I didn't think I was wrong about that one. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that the Midnight Express held the world titles more than they actually did.
Yeah, they were States tag titles.
Yeah, they were mostly, for the most part, United States heavyweight champions.
Mm-hmm.
But they did hold. Now, how many times did the Midnight Express hold the world title, world tag team championships?
I don't know.
2, 3, 4 times.
Well, they only had the U.S. title for three times. The U.S. title, but they held them for a combined 505 days.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Rock and Roll Express held them about 5 or 6 times, maybe.
Here's why I'm probably thinking they were around longer than they were. The Steiners held them for 225 days.
Yeah, well, yeah. But that's the Steiner brothers. Who could beat the Steiner brothers at that particular point in time? Mm-hmm. The only team that really had a chance against the Steiner brothers was another face team that they wrestled once. As I recall, the Road Warriors and the Steiner brothers only faced each other in a match one time.
It's a possibility, at least in WCW.
Yeah.
See, here's another thing. It might be why I'm thinking they were around longer too. Pillman held them. Him and the Z-Man held them. Tom Zink.
Yep. Wow, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. Tom Zink. If anybody that don't know Tom Zink, he was about the size of Pillman, maybe even a little shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Very well built, very athletic. Black hair. I remember the hair.
Yeah.
So,
hell, him and Rick Martel were a hell of a tag team too.
Yep. And then he just disappeared. Whatever happened to him?
I don't know.
Danny Davis owned OVW till Vince bought him out. Yep, this is true. Did TV and tapes every Tuesday in Louisville, Kentucky. Yep. So, the thing about it is when you get back down to who had he's dead.
Yeah, he died in 2017.
Damn. Well,
atherosclerosis and cardiomyopathy. How do you pronounce that? Cardiomegaly? No.
Ask your wife.
She
works in her husband.
She went up to bed.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's a shock.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, there's just way too many titles in the WWE. Now, where they're smart is they have for the NXT, they have a whole separate thing going on over there.
Yeah.
But for the SmackDown Raw thing, why do both brands need a world champion?
I don't know.
Why do they need two world champions?
Well, no, they have one world champion and they have one universal champion.
Yeah, but still,
I know. I
it
get your point.
equals out to the same thing.
Yeah.
And
NXT, you have 5 championships.
AEW has the world title, tag team championships.
There's 4. There's 4
Is there?
championships. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You have the world title, the TNT title, the tag team championships, and the women's title.
So, do I think that they could use at least one more? I do.
Well, they do have one, but it's not defended on TV. It's defended in different like games and stuff on Being the Elite, where like when they crowned the champion, they held a Gator golf tournament. You know what Gator golf is?
No, but I'm sure I'm about to find out.
It's a kid's game where you have this little plastic alligator that's the hole, and you use little plastic clubs that look like flamingos, right? And you have little plastic ball that looks like a golf ball. And the idea is to get the golf ball into the alligator. They set this up with different obstacles and stuff all around the arena. And they played Gator golf, and the winner of the tournament got the championship belt. I can't remember what championship they call it. And every episode of Being the Elite, somebody challenges for this championship in some goofy game thing. Like this week's episode, they had Trent Beretta challenging John Silver for the championship, and the competition was they had to throw a mustard packet from 10 feet away into a bowl, a little like styrofoam bowl.
Okay, then.
But
that's stupid.
No, there's some. It's you got to remember, Being the Elite's like a comedy thing too. They tell some of the storylines you have to watch that to get into. Like if you want to find out the secret about the Dark Order and everything, you got to watch Being the Elite. There's more to it than what you see on Dynamite every week. There's a whole backstory to the whole thing, like what they do behind the scenes and everything, how they interact with each other. You don't see them interacting with each other other than to be out there for the others' matches. But when you watch Being the Elite, you see how goofy they are when they're hanging out in their clubhouse as the cult thing that that's their shtick. So there is some things on Being the Elite that actually have value to the TV series, to the wrestling promotion itself. And then there's other things where it's just them goofing around, basically showing off how they blow off steam backstage while they're waiting for the matches and stuff. Which is what the show started out being when the Young Bucks started it back when they were over in New Japan. Then it shows what they go through when they're traveling and stuff. A lot of it you would see them on their flights and on the trains and the buses over there in Japan. So yeah, there's actual value to Being the Elite, and this championship is just one of the ways that they blow off steam.
Now, in my opinion, and especially for the NWA, I always think they need to have that United States title, because as long as there's the United States title, there is absolutely no doubt who the number one contender for the world title is.
Yeah,
it's always going to be. There's always going to be the number one contender is the guy with the United States title.
Yeah, here's what
period.
You can't do that in NWA now, because Vince McMahon owns the U.S. copyright for United States Championship. So what the NWA did, they brought back the National Heavyweight Championship.
There you go. That it equals out to the same thing. Mm-hmm. Still, whoever owns that title is next in line. He's the number one contender for the world title. To me, as a young guy watching pro wrestling, I was always more interested, and I don't know why. I loved the United States title. If I could have been a wrestler, that's the title I'd want to hold. United States title. I guess it's mainly because my favorite wrestler was the United States champion for a long time. And that's Magnum TA. I'm sure anybody that watches this show knows who I'm talking about. But Magnum has always and will always be my favorite wrestler. I'd love to get him on the show sometime. I probably wouldn't I'd probably completely forget anything I'd ever want to ask him because I'd be but I've always loved that title. And it's a shame that Vince McMahon owns it and the NWA or AEW can't use it any longer. But how does AEW get away with using the television title?
They don't. It's the TNT title.
Oh, okay.
It's specifically the TNT title. The logo, the T is the TNT channel's letters. How their logo is, the TV station TNT, how their logo is. That's that's what's on the championship belt.
Okay. Well,
but the WWE doesn't have a TV title.
Yeah, I know they never did.
No.
Well, if you remember back in the 80s, the single titles in the WWE, if I'm not mistaken, and again I could be wrong, was just the world title, the Intercontinental title, and that was it.
That was it. Yeah. They briefly had the light heavyweight championship, but that quickly went away.
And you would have, when you talk about 80s WWF and world champions, there's only one name that comes to mind: Hogan.
There really was one.
Yeah. He owned that title from 1985 till.
It was before that.
Yeah, well, probably, yeah. Well, he beat the He beat the Iron Sheik for it, and from that point on, from whenever he won it till something like 1990, 91, he owned that title. Period.
He owned that title until he left for WCW. You would occasionally have somebody else hold it, but that was Hogan's belt. Whenever he decided he wanted it, it was on his waist again.
Yep. Andre took it for a while. Hogan got it back. Savage took it for a while. Hogan got it back. Undertaker took it for a while. Hogan got it back.
Ultimate Warrior took it for a while.
Hogan got it back. And those are the 4 losses Hulk Hogan had for the WWE title.
Oh, right, here's a good one. Here's a good one. Hulk Hogan lost a match to Bret Hart to decide who was going to take on Yokozuna for the World Heavyweight title. Bret Hart loses to Yokozuna. All of a sudden, there's a spontaneous match between Hogan and Yokozuna, which Hogan wins and is then the World Heavyweight Champion. Again.
Yep. So, how many times did Hogan lose the world title in WWF and get it back? Okay, we know he lost to Taker. Mm-hmm. Got it back. Andre got it back. Savage got it back. Who did Yokozuna beat to get the title?
Bret Hart. Yokozuna beat Bret Hart for it after Bret Hart had beaten Ric Flair for it. Then Hogan beat Yokozuna right after he won it from Bret Hart.
That's right. I forgot about that. Didn't Flair beat Hogan for the title?
Nope. Flair won it in the Royal Rumble. The only guy at that point to win the championship in the Royal Rumble until
that's right.
Just recently when it was done again.
Triple H
one that won it.
That's an interesting question I just thought of though. Has Flair ever pinned or beat Hulk Hogan in a match?
Not that I can recall.
I don't think he has. I don't think he ever pinned or beat Hulk Hogan in any way. I know he's beat Sting. I know he's beat Luger. I know he's pinned Dusty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever recall him beating for 1, 2, 3 Hulk Hogan.
No.
So that's an interesting tidbit, huh?
Yeah, I don't remember Flair ever beating him either.
And I wonder, and this is just my mind wondering, folks, if that's the case, was it because Hogan had too much pride to do the job for Flair? Or was there something else going on?
I think there was something else going on.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because Flair has a lot of pride himself. Okay. Especially then. If I'm Ric Flair and I know I'm about to go one-on-one with Hulk Hogan, I am going to do everything in my power backstage to convince somebody, hey, look, let me get a win.
I'm good.
If Flair goes against Hogan and Hogan beats him every single time, where's the money come from? But if Flair goes against Hogan and Flair beats Hogan 2 out of 5 times, then you got that dynamic. Then you're saying, maybe. But I don't ever recall Flair beating Hogan.
I don't either. So I'm looking it up now.
I mean, even a cheating victory would be a victory, you know?
Yeah, they had 12 major matches together.
And how many of those matches did Flair actually win?
That's what I'm looking to see.
And I'm not talking by disqualification or by count out. I'm talking actual Flair pins Hogan. Kingpin. Here's the thing about Ric Flair and all of his title runs. They say that Ric Flair was a 16-time world champion. I think there was one night when me and Rich actually figured it out. I don't think it was on cam. I think it was after a show or before a show. And in reality, Ric Flair has probably been a world heavyweight champion, won the world, not 16 times, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 25, 26 times. World heavyweight champion. but you don't hear about some of those wins. He lost it in, I think, Puerto Rico. But he only lost it for like 2 days and won it back. You never hear about that. He had lost it in a couple of territories and won it back. Of course, these were all the house shows back before, national television. So, but I think me and Rich figured it out one night, and it was like 25, 26, maybe more actual world title runs. And now keep in mind, that don't include all the runs he had with the United States Heavyweight Championship, the AWA Championship titles, the other organizations that he was in at the time or before. So you have to remember, Ric Flair's was wrestling in the 70s. He didn't win his first title till what, 82? 81, 82 when he beat Race. So he held a lot of titles before that first NWA title win.
Okay. Flair has only beat Hogan twice, and neither case was for the title.
Was it a clean pin?
One.
Huh. Wow. Okay.
The other was a first blood match, which Hogan had busted Flair open first, but they played the referee didn't see it. Shenanigans.
Huh. Well, there you have it. So
that's as far as not being disqualifications. There were some disqualifications, but that was when Hogan was in the NWO.
Yeah. How many title runs did we finally come up with for Flair?
God, I don't know. Let's count.
Yeah. 16 is way off the real number. We can say that for sure.
It's at least in the 20s.
Yeah. And that's world titles. That's world title runs. So, and probably you could probably push it up to 30 if you got really looking into it. Mm-hmm. Because like I said,
and we're still talking recognized championship reigns. There's times where he would lose it on the territories and nobody ever counted it in the other territories, so it never happened.
Yeah, exactly. Like that time in Puerto Rico. He goes to Puerto Rico. He loses it to I can't remember the guy's name at the moment, but he loses it anyway. 3-4 days later, he wins it back. People in the United States.
Was it Carlos Colon he lost it to?
Possibly.
I mean, that's the biggest guy in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. And people here never hears about it. People here never heard anything about it. It wasn't on television. It wasn't advertised. And the only reason we know anything about it is because of stories from Flair or stories from other wrestlers talking about it.
Yeah, guys like Dave Meltzer, who had the dirt pizza that would report on what was going on in the different territories and stuff. And that guy is still going.
Yep, I know. Yep. Dave will always be there.
You know the Young Bucks have a move named for him, right? The Meltzer driver. It's an assisted pile driver.
That don't surprise me at all. Really don't. So, when we're talking about championship runs, especially for Flair, I would say his total number of championships that he has had, not just including the world championship, but television titles, United States titles, other titles that you may or may not have seen, they're probably numbered somewhere in the 40s. Because he's also been world tag team champion on several occasions.
Yeah, but that don't count because we're talking singles championships.
Well,
now, if you want to get technical, the Intercontinental Championship technically would be a world championship.
Yeah, this
And
is true.
he felt that too.
Yep. So that's the thing about the whole numbers with Flair. Nobody knows the exact number, but we can make a pretty good guess. Some of the title runs he had in the WWF or in the WCW or NWA, I should say, they don't count. Some of the runs he had in the WCW don't count for some reason. I count them all.
Well, hell, they don't count Dustin Rhodes' run with the NWA title.
Well, this is true. They don't. So, why they don't count them, I don't know. I don't know the logic behind it. But in reality, saying Ric Flair is a 16-time world heavyweight champion is kind of a slap to the man's face. Apparently he's okay with it. But
depending on what day of the week you ask him if he's been drinking or not.
Yeah, exactly. But me as a fan of professional wrestling, I think it's kind of disrespectful not to give him his, full credit. If he's even lost it for a day and won it back, an hour later, he still held that title for that time. That was a championship run. As far as I know, the shortest championship run in wrestling history was probably the Hulk Hogan Yokozuna match. He, like you said, he beat Bret Hart. Hulk Hogan comes in and beats him.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the next one after that was probably Sting, who won it and lost it in the same night.
Well, that's happened multiple times.
So, and who knows how many title runs Sting's actually had. So, because of the same.
Not that many.
Oh, he's had quite a few.
All of his are recognized and documented.
Yeah.
He's
91. He won it.
He's only held like 6 or 7 world titles.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Undertaker, everybody thinks the Undertaker. He's only held the world title like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I know. But the Undertaker's like Sting. He never really had to have the title to be a draw. Surfer Sting, people like the attitude. They like the charisma. But the Crow Sting, I loved the Crow Sting. When he first started showing up in the black and white paint, I was like, oh yeah, I like this. This is good. And man, I got excited every time the lights went out because I knew here comes Sting. He's gonna mess somebody up.
Remember? Remember there was a transition.
Oh yeah,
from spiked blonde hair Sting with the face paint surfer style.
Yeah,
the face paint with the long dark hair.
Yeah,
and the whole thing where he went away for a while and came back as
the Crow Sting.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just kept reinventing himself, and I thought that was great. Because if you remember when he first started showing up in the WCW, NWA, he had sort of a mohawk do going on.
Mm-hmm.
He had the hair through here, but it was shaved on both sides, but not like a Road Warrior mohawk. It wasn't completely shaved, bald.
Yeah, 80s style spiked hairdo.
Yep. So, I've always liked Sting. Always will like Sting.
Kingpin is asking, but he's asking somebody out there in the chat if John Cena can wrestle. He said he's never seen a Cena match.
No,
I would say that depends. Cena's had some good matches. He's legitimately had some good matches. Most of the time, he's just going through the motions. Where Cena is good is on the mic. Cena is one of the best talkers that's ever been in the ring.
Oh, that I have to agree with. That I'll agree with.
When Cena has a good opponent and the two of them actually plan out and care about what's going to happen in the ring, yeah, Cena can go. So there's that. But
when I think of good matches, I'm thinking Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage. Those are two examples of freaking great matches. Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express. Every one of those matches were classics.
yeah. Well, I'm not saying Cena is one of the all-time greatest in the ring performers.
Oh yeah, I agree.
He can have his moments. That's all I'm.
Yeah. You know, I have always rated matches by the match itself. How realistic was it? You know, did it look like it actually hurt when somebody hit somebody with a certain move? Or did it look like it was just, whatever? You know, and here's a prime example. Watch any Ric Flair match, and you will always see Ric Flair in a backdrop. It never fails. It happens every single Flair match. Flair's chopping a dude on the chest. Guy finally fights back, grabs Flair, whips him into the rope. Flair comes off. Dude flips Flair back up over his shoulder. Flair always lands on his side because of his. I'm assuming it's because of the injury to his back years earlier. He sells that like it is absolutely killing him.
Yeah, there's two other three cliche things that Flair does. One,
no, the flop,
and flip over the top rope.
Yep.
Another, try and climb up to the top rope and get caught.
Yep.
And the other is the fall flat on his face.
The Flair flop.
Yep.
As they call it. Hit the head 2-3 times, take 2 steps, fall forward. Boom.
Yeah.
First time. Now, there is actually another one. The Flair knee drop.
Yeah.
Which over the years changed quite a bit. Because when he originally started doing that, he would just jump up, come down, knee on the head, and that was it. Well, later on, he would jump up, come down, knee on the head, and then roll through it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, just another aspect of what Flair was all about. And, Flair had one offensive move, period. It was that chop. That chop was his one offensive move.
Chop block.
Well, yeah, but I was talking legitimate offensive move. The chop block was illegal.
No.
So
the chop block was never illegal. In professional football, it's illegal.
Well,
in college football, it's illegal.
Yeah, but the way he would do it,
never illegal.
He would always hit it outside the ring or something, or do it when somebody wasn't paying attention.
Well, no, you just get behind him, and he.
Well,
and usually that was.
We forgot about another one of his signatures. The crotch uppercut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God. You go over you watch New Japan. That's become Evil's finishing maneuver. The referee gets distracted by the guy that's acting as his second or manager, whatever you want to call him. And next thing you know, low blow from Evil, and then he hits his actual finisher.
Wow. I guess Ric Flair has probably hit more people in the nuts in the wrestling business than anybody in the game. Do you remember the match he had? I think it was with was it with The Undertaker? where he just constantly throughout the whole match hit dude in the nuts. I guess he 15, 20 nut shots throughout the whole match.
Oh
And
hell!
I was like,
the one match fairly recently with Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. Lesnar kept hitting Undertaker with the low blow.
it's amazing, man. Okay, folks, we've been at this for about an hour and 20 minutes now. And Midnight Range just shows up as we're getting off the air. Thank you, Midnight. Anyway, guys, we've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes. It's been great. I've loved it. Rick, you got anything, or Rich, do you have anything you want to plug? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, just be sure to check out This Week Unloaded tomorrow night over on the Unloaded Media channel. That'll be at around 8:30 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
And go over and check out Kingpin's channel. He won't ever, promote himself, so somebody's got to, right? And yeah, after my show tomorrow night, you can also catch Midnight Range. He'll have the closer.
Absolutely. And as when are you doing your next show?
What am I doing on it?
Well, yeah, when are you doing your next show?
Tomorrow night.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Sunday nights at 8:30 Eastern. So.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, Monday night. First of all, I want to apologize for last weekend, guys. I wasn't here Saturday. I didn't do a show Monday. The reason for that was I was dead. When I got home from work Monday night, I went to bed. By the time I woke up, there wasn't me doing me no show that night. So, luckily I didn't have anything planned special. So I do apologize for that. Been a rough week, especially at work with Black Friday and then leading into the weekend. And it's just, I was exhausted. That being said, this week I don't really have anything planned for the show this week. I'm going to try to come up with something between now and then. Maybe, hopefully. We shall see. If not, I will do what I always do and throw a link out in the chat, and whoever wants to jump in, and we'll figure out something to talk about. Anyway, guys, God bless you. I appreciate each and every one of you. I love each and every one of you. Y'all take care. Be safe. And God bless.